Wealth isn't about predicting the future. It's about preparing one thoughtful decision at a time. Imagine discovering that every single year, someone quietly removes a small portion of your savings, not by stealing your money, not by hacking your bank account, not by increasing your taxes. Your balance looks exactly the same. Every dollar is still there. Every cent remains untouched. Yet somehow, your money buys less. The strange part? Most people never notice, because inflation doesn't arrive like a storm. It arrives like rust, slowly, silently, patiently, until one morning, you walk into the grocery store and wonder, when did everything become so expensive? Today, we're uncovering one of the quietest forces in finance, a force that has shaped every generation, every economy, and every household, because understanding inflation may be one of the most valuable financial lessons you'll ever learn. Let's begin with something simple. A cup of coffee. Imagine it's the year. You walk into your favorite cafe. You order a latte. The price? $3. You smile, pay, and leave. Now imagine walking into that same cafe today. Same building, same counter, same recipe, same aroma. But the price has changed. Not because the coffee became magical. Not because the cup became larger. Something else changed. The value of money. Your $3 didn't disappear. It simply stopped buying what it once could. That is inflation. Meet Michael. Michael is careful with money. He avoids unnecessary spending, pays his bills on time, works hard, and every month he saves, not because he loves numbers, because he wants security. Over 20 years, his savings account grows steadily. Michael feels proud. His balance is larger than ever. But one afternoon, while shopping for groceries, he notices something strange. The money he spent years building doesn't seem to stretch as far. The numbers in his bank account haven't changed, but what those numbers can buy has. People often imagine inflation as something dramatic, a crisis, a headline, an emergency. Sometimes it is, but most of the time, inflation is remarkably ordinary. 1%, 2%, 3%, year after year. So small that almost nobody notices until decades have passed. Imagine owning a wooden fence. Each day, a tiny drop of rain falls upon it. Nothing happens. Weeks pass. Still nothing. Months pass. The wood begins to change. Years later, the fence quietly weakens. Not because of one storm, because of thousands of tiny drops. Inflation works the same way. Rarely through one dramatic event. Almost always through quiet accumulation. Michael didn't lose money overnight. He lost a little purchasing power every single year, quietly, patiently, almost invisibly. But this raises an even bigger question. If inflation quietly reduces what our money can buy, why does inflation exist at all? Why would any economy allow prices to keep rising? The answer may surprise you. If inflation quietly reduces what our money can buy, why does it exist at all? It's a reasonable question. After all, wouldn't a world with perfectly stable prices be better? The answer is more complicated than it first appears. Imagine an entire town. One baker, one carpenter, one farmer, one mechanic, one teacher. Every morning, they trade their skills with one another. The farmer grows wheat. The baker turns it into bread. The mechanic repairs the baker's delivery truck. The teacher educates the mechanic's children. Money simply helps this exchange happen more easily. But over time, the town begins to grow. More families arrive. More homes are built. More businesses open. Demand increases. More people want bread. More people need houses. More people buy groceries. As demand grows, prices gradually adjust. Not because anyone became greedy overnight, because the economy itself is expanding. Here's another way to imagine it. Picture a balloon. Inside the balloon is the economy. As businesses grow, people earn more. Ideas become products. Factories produce more goods. Technology improves. The balloon expands. Now imagine trying to fit twice as many people into the same grocery store without producing any extra food. Prices would rise, not because the food changed, because more people are competing for the same goods. Inflation often begins when demand grows faster than supply can keep up. Economists often describe inflation with a simple idea: too much money chasing too few goods. Imagine a village market. There are 100 baskets of fruit and 100 buyers. Prices remain fairly stable. Now imagine another 100 buyers suddenly arrive, but the number of fruit baskets doesn't change. The fruit hasn't become more valuable. It has become more competitive. More people want it than before. So prices naturally begin to rise. This doesn't explain every episode of inflation. Sometimes higher energy costs, supply disruptions, wars, or natural disasters reduce the supply of goods instead. In reality, inflation often reflects a combination of stronger demand and changing supply. At this point, inflation may sound entirely negative, but here's something many people don't realize. A modest, stable level of inflation is generally considered normal in many economies. Why? Because healthy economies are constantly moving. People earn raises, businesses invest, technology improves, new products appear, workers become more productive. A little inflation can accompany an economy that's growing. The challenge comes when inflation rises much faster than incomes or becomes unpredictable. That's when households feel squeezed, budgets tighten, savings lose purchasing power more quickly, and uncertainty begins replacing confidence. So inflation isn't simply about higher prices. It's about purchasing power. It's about balance. It's about understanding that the number in your bank account tells only part of the story. The real question is, what can those numbers actually buy? And that brings us to something even more surprising. If inflation quietly affects everyone, why do so many people barely notice it happening? The answer lies not in economics, but in human psychology. Have you ever wondered why inflation surprises us? After all, we buy groceries every week. We fill our cars with fuel. We pay our rent. We order coffee. Shouldn't we notice prices rising? Surprisingly, our minds aren't very good at detecting slow change. Think about a child. If you see that child every day, their growth is almost invisible. But meet them again 5 years later, and you're astonished. What happened? The change didn't occur overnight. It happened one ordinary day at a time. Inflation works much the same way, rarely through dramatic leaps, usually through thousands of almost unnoticeable moments. $1 more for coffee, $2 more for groceries, a slightly higher electricity bill, a modest increase in rent. Each change feels manageable until one day you realize your paycheck doesn't seem to go as far. Economists have a fascinating name for another reason inflation goes unnoticed. It's called the money illusion. Imagine receiving a raise. Your salary increases by 5%. You feel successful. You celebrate. But if prices also rose by 5%, has your purchasing power really changed? Not necessarily. The number on your paycheck became larger, but the number of groceries, the number of tanks of fuel, the number of restaurant meals may have stayed almost exactly the same. Our minds naturally focus on the numbers. Reality focuses on what those numbers can buy. That's why understanding purchasing power is often more important than simply watching your bank balance grow. Some financial educators describe inflation as a silent tax, not because the government collects it directly, but because it quietly reduces what idle cash can purchase over time. Imagine placing a block of ice on your kitchen counter. The melting doesn't happen all at once. Minute by minute, drop by drop, the ice becomes smaller. The same can happen to purchasing power, not because the cash disappears, because its ability to buy goods and services gradually changes. That's why many long-term investors don't ask only, how much money do I have? They also ask, how well is my money keeping pace with rising prices over time? If inflation affects everyone, why don't all savers respond the same way? Because people make different choices about where they keep their money. Some choose cash for short-term needs because stability and easy access matter. Others place part of their long-term savings into investments that they believe have the potential to grow over time. No investment can eliminate inflation entirely, and every investment carries risk. Markets can rise, and they can fall, but over long periods, many investors aim for growth that outpaces inflation, recognizing that future returns are uncertain. The goal isn't simply to accumulate more dollars, it's to preserve, and ideally increase, what those dollars can actually buy. Inflation isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't ring your doorbell. It simply asks one quiet question. Year after year, is your money still working as hard as you are? And that leads us to the final lesson. Not how to escape inflation, because no one completely can, but how thoughtful people learn to prepare for it. So, if inflation quietly reduces purchasing power, what should we actually do? Not panic, not chase every investment trend, not try to predict tomorrow's headlines. Instead, begin with something much simpler. Understand the purpose of every dollar. Some money has a job today. Some money has a job next year. Some money has a job 20 years from now. Those jobs are different. Money you'll need soon is often kept where stability and quick access matter most. Money you won't need for many years may be invested with the goal of long-term growth, recognizing that markets can fluctuate and future returns are uncertain. The wisdom isn't choosing one instead of the other. The wisdom is knowing which money belongs where. Many people spend their lives collecting money, but money was never the destination. It was always the tool. Money buys choices. Choices create freedom. Freedom creates peace. Inflation reminds us that simply owning cash isn't the same as preserving its value. The goal isn't to become obsessed with numbers. The goal is to protect the life those numbers represent. The family vacations, the education, the retirement, the dreams, the quiet evenings, without financial worry. Those are the things money was always meant to serve. Imagine finding an old $100 bill hidden inside a forgotten book. It had been resting there for 30 years. The paper survived. The ink remained crisp. The number never changed, but the world around it did. That single bill could no longer buy what it once could. Inflation didn't steal the money. Time changed its power. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson of all. Time changes everything. It changes cities, families, careers, technology, even money. The question is not whether inflation will exist. History suggests it probably will. The real question is this: will your financial plan recognize that reality? Because wealth isn't measured only by how much money you save. It's measured by how well your savings continue serving your future. Inflation is quiet. Patience is quiet. Wisdom is quiet. The choices that shape our financial future are often quiet too. Not dramatic, not viral, not overnight, just thoughtful decisions made consistently over time. Because in the end, wealth is rarely built through noise. It's built through understanding. I'm Lily, and this is Lily Invests, where money is explained beautifully, so wisdom can last a lifetime. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and invest with wisdom. Remember, wealth isn't about predicting the future. It's about preparing one thoughtful decision at a time. Money's greatest value isn't what it is worth today, it's what it allows tomorrow. Subscribe to Lily Invest for calm, practical investing explained simply.